I do bodhicitta, a bodhicitta motivation for reading about bodhicitta. We're going to be looking at what Lama Tsongkhapa says about the importance of her compassion. So anyway, that's where it starts really. Yeah, great compassion, taking responsibility, thinking of all the suffering on every level of all the sentient beings without leaving out a single one. Then, it's kind of like, I think there's only one thing it's like it's bound to take you. It's definitely going to take you to bodhicitta. Great compassion. Anyway, yes, let's meditate on compassion, generate some compassion, and then bodhicitta, in order to be able to actually free your sentient beings from their suffering and lead them to happiness, not just ordinary happiness, but the perfect happiness of complete enlightenment. If we can read the, actually first Sangye Chodang, Refuge Bodhicitta, and then the Foundation of All Qualities. Jada Zage Chanam La Janjo Bada Dani Gazoje Dagi Jinzo Gebe Sonai Rola Penje Sangi Dropa Sho. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect Guru. Correctly following the Guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is extremely difficult to find again, and is greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind, taking its essence which means wanting to practice Dharma day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble. Remember how quickly they perish and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collections of shortcomings and in accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized the shortcomings of samsaric perfections, there is no satisfaction in enjoying them. They are the door to all suffering, and they cannot be trusted. Please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought with great remembrance, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows the root of the teaching in my essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all Mother transmigratory beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme Bodhicitta, which bears the responsibility of freeing transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only Bodhicitta without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, I cannot achieve enlightenment. By my seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vow of the sons of the victorious ones with fervent effort. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. When I have become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and samaya purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the essence of the tantric sets, and am enjoying the yoga of full sessions with effort without being distracted by non-meditation according to the teachings of the holy beings. Thus may the virtuous friends who reveal the noble path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay. So in this teaching by Lama Tsongkhapa, the mid-length Lamrim, we're on the part of the text which is called How to Guide the Disciples Along the Path in the context of having a good relationship with the guru, qualified guru. And so within that, mainly you have the practices in common with a person of small capability, which means practicing the avoidance of the 10 non-virtues, killing and so on, that morality. That way you make sure that you're not going to go to the lower realms after this life, and also that you're going to have a much better chance of continuing with what you started off in this life. Well, in fact, if you do well enough, then there's no question. You create the causes for being able to follow this path for life after life. But of course, still, then each of those lives is still kind of like you're still in cyclic existence, you're still in samsara, means you're still bound by the mental afflictions, and therefore by karma, and so you're not beyond suffering, and it can't last forever. Even if you wanted it to last forever, you couldn't have that lasting forever, just life after life as a human being or whatever. So the main thing then is then you have to find kind of like a liberation from that kind of situation. Even if you're more interested in the bodhisattva path, you still have to follow that, whatever path is necessary, whatever practices and meditations are necessary to be able to be able to take control of your own mind, really, to be able to learn the antidotes, apply the antidotes to the mental afflictions, and gradually become free. Which so interesting. Just by the way, Geshe-Zobala, the one who wrote the big, commentaries to the Lamrim Chenmo. So he always talked about emancipation. And it's interesting, actually. I just saw this weekend, I'm down here to do the English translation for Ling Rinpoche, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche. And he sort of made a point which suddenly made it make sense, which helped to make sense to me, that the insistence on always talking about emancipation, which is that at the moment, it's funny, really. It's sort of like, we don't think everything's okay, everything's perfect, but actually we are, and to a degree, maybe we are in control of our own lives. You sort of get that impression, but not really in control. And especially, actually, the thing is that we're the slaves of the mental afflictions. We are the slaves of our own mental afflictions, our own attachment and anger and so on. It's like from the time we get up in the morning till the time that we go to bed at night, we're sort of at their beck and call. We do what they say. We do what they make us do. And so we talk about, achieving freedom from that. But, emancipation from slavery kind of makes sense then, doesn't it? Emancipation from slavery. Anyway, so that, and then, so once you've achieved emancipation from that slavery, then at last you're able to lead a pure life. That's what he used to say also, pure life. If I'm not mistaken, that's how I remember anyway. Pure life. Something quite pure about being able to live a life where you're not doing everything that the mental afflictions tell you. So you can actually do good in the world. You can be kind to people. We try to be kind, of course, but those mental afflictions, they sort of, or another way of looking at it, self-cherishing mind, self-grasping mind, they hold you back. They kind of like spoil things. Yeah. Anyway, so at the middle scope, middle capable being, but even that also is not enough. Just your own freedom, your own emancipation, because there are countless other sentient beings, infinite mother sentient beings. And so it would be, to put it mildly, quite unworthy to just think of ourselves when they need our help. Like people who you're close to and who rely on you and have been kind to you in this life, when they need help, if you don't help them, it's really it's really quite wrong, isn't it? So anyway, countless other sentient beings, thinking of them. So that's what brings us to the great scope. So the idea of bringing all sentient beings to enlightenment, and in order to do that, oneself achieving enlightenment. So so this talks of first of all, Lama Tsongkhapa, sort of a little bit of a well, maybe it's a bit disrespectful to say, but like a bit of a pep talk. It's like you've really got to start. Just thinking about your own liberation is not enough. You've got to start thinking about others. You have to do that, and then he goes on to say, so this is at the bottom of page 191. There are, it's very nice actually. The paragraph before where he sort of a summary of what he's been saying. It's like just to recognize that this is just the most unbelievable opportunity. I mean, to have even heard the word bodhicitta in your life is pretty amazing, but to have heard about how to practice it and so on, and to have the freedom, wow, it's quite amazing. And so he finishes off by saying, how amazing it is that I found this, that I've come across this opportunity. I've found this kind of like jewel in the world, like no other jewel. You could have, like $1 billion, $1 trillion, and that can't buy you happiness. It can't buy you a good future life. It can't buy you inner peace. But this opportunity to hear about and then gradually try to cultivate these qualities of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, those are the real jewels, the real wealth, the inner wealth is just priceless, really priceless. Anyway, so he says there are 3 points for this, 3 points for training one's mind in the stage of the path of persons of great capacity. So the first one is how generating the mind of enlightenment, in other words, how generating bodhicitta is the only gateway to the Mahayana. The only gateway. They talk about gateways quite a bit in the, I don't know if it's a Tibetan thing. They talk about, or the gateway or door. Anyway, this is the same thing in Tibetan. Go from the 3 doors: body, door of body, door of speech, door of mind. We could just say, by way of body, by way of speech, by way of mind. So you enter into that path by way of bodhicitta. You enter into the Mahayana by way of bodhicitta, by way of generating a bodhicitta in your mind. So it's talking about that and talking about how it's the only way to get in. There isn't a back door. There's just this door. Then how to generate that mind. So we'll see that there are what he mentions, the 2 main ways. I mean, basically there's just 2 ways, but there's also a third way which combines those 2 ways. So there's the equalizing, the 7-part cause and effect instruction. So we're going to see that later on. Then the equalizing, exchanging self and others. And then there's a meditation which combines those, which is very nice, and a few other things that we're going to look at. We have to really, because there's some things which are not in here, but if we don't look at them now, then we're going to look at them. I mean, when I got explanations of these things was during this kind of teaching, If it doesn't come in here, then it's like you might never hear it. Okay. So let's see how we're doing there. Okay, I can unplug it. So how generating bodhicitta is the only way to get into the Mahayana. It's funny. It's just, anyway, so what it actually says here is, if we are thinking to ourselves, well, if it's so important to enter into the Mahayana, Now, why would you be thinking that? Because you're thinking, well, you know, Mahayana. Yana is vehicle, but we could just as easily say path. You know, this is the path to enlightenment. If it's important to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, then you have to follow the path. Well, how do we start that path? So what is the gateway to enter it? If you were Tibetan, that's what you'd be asking, where's the gate? Where's the door? So anyway, how do we get in? So how do we get in, right? So, so it says there's two within the Mahayana. You've got the Paramitayana and you've got the Vajrayana. Simply speaking, it means you've got the sort of the sutra path to achieve enlightenment. Then there's the tantric path to achieve enlightenment. So that's what that's saying. Paramitayana and Mantrayana, actually. Bodhicitta, Vajrayana. Nagitekpa, the Mantrayana. Okay. So those are the two types of Mahayana that the Buddha taught, and whichever of these two you want to enter, whether it's the Paramitayana, which is literally it's the vehicle of perfections, it just means following the Bodhisattva path without practicing Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, or Ashtanga Tantra. Whichever you may wish to enter, whichever of those two you want to follow, the only way in is bodhicitta. Okay. Anyway, I think sometimes you might hear the door of entrance into the Vajrayana is initiation. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, what it means, what he's saying is there's no way that you're really going to be following the Mahayana path unless you've got bodhicitta, and there's no way you're actually going to be practicing the Vajrayana. You can, like we do, even without bodhicitta, just having a bit of a feeling for it and some kind of understanding for it, that the idea seems right to us to not just think of ourselves, to think of others, and to try to get enlightened for their sake, without actually having yet the full-blown bodhicitta. We can do that, but really following the Vajrayana path means you've got you actually have bodhicitta, and also the understanding of emptiness. So whenever this has been produced in your mind, whenever this has arisen in the mind, so in other words, whenever you produce that quality in your mind, even though you have nothing else, no other knowledge, no other quality, if you imagine, like just nothing else, just that, you will have entered into the Mahayana and you'll be a Bodhisattva. Whereas if you don't have that, you can have any other kind of quality. You can be the richest person in the world, and of course, on the sort of worldly level, it kind of course, irrelevant. Even on the spiritual level, you can have all kinds of qualities. You could have like achieve calm abiding, and on the basis of having achieved calm abiding, you achieve all these other even deeper levels of concentration, and you can use those to develop the super knowledges where you can read other people's minds, and you can fly in the sky, and there's all sorts of things that you might be able to do, but you won't be in the Mahayana because you don't have bodhicitta. So it's the one thing that you definitely have to have. Without it, you're not an actual Mahayanist. Whereas whenever one is separated from it, so in other words, so when it says, okay, let's read the whole sentence. I'm jumping ahead. Whereas whenever one is separated from it, whatever excellent qualities one may have, such as the realization of emptiness and so forth, one will fall to the level of a Shravaka and the like, and fall from the Mahayana. So what that must mean, you see, when it says separated from it, it doesn't just mean not having it. It means that you had it, and so you were a bodhisattva, you were in the Mahayana, and then you lost it somehow. And this is possible, actually. When they talk about the 22 types of bodhicitta, the first one is the bodhicitta like the earth, because that just is stressing the fact that now you have bodhicitta. That's like the foundation for everything else on the Mahayana path. But it's only the second one which is called bodhicitta like gold. So the thing about gold is it doesn't tarnish. It's just a chemical thing, isn't it? Silver can tarnish, and you have to clean it, right? But gold doesn't tarnish. I guess if it's impure, it could, but if it's pure gold, it doesn't tarnish. So that what that means is you got the path of accumulation is the first of the 5 paths of the Mahayana, and the first one, the path of accumulation, is divided up into 3 levels. So on the first of those 3 levels, you even though you've got bodhicitta, you can lose it. It can happen. I think there's maybe there's a story of somebody at the time of Buddha. I feel like saying Shariputra, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not 100% sure. And then but once you get to the middle level of that path, from that point onwards, it's impossible to lose the bodhicitta. And so that's what it means when it says, whenever one is separated from it, if you lose it, then whatever other kind of qualities you might have realized emptiness and so forth. But still, you won't be in the Mahayana anymore, and you'll fall to the level of a Shravaka and so forth. And the like must mean, maybe you could become a Pratyeka Buddha, 2 types of Hinayana practitioner. This is taught in numerous texts of the Mahayana and is also established by reasoning. Okay, so there are lots of texts that say that, and it's established by reasoning. What kind of reasoning? Think a couple of minutes about what reasoning tells you, in what way your ability to reason tells you that if you didn't have bodhicitta, if you lose your bodhicitta, you would no longer be in the Mahayana. Well, I don't know, but it seems like if you think when you're on the Mahayana path, that means you're a bodhisattva. And if you've got no bodhicitta, then you're not a bodhisattva anymore, are you? So how could you be on the Mahayana path when you're not a bodhisattva? I guess there's probably some other logic, maybe better logic, but anyway, reasoning. Therefore, whether one is a Mahayanist is determined by whether one has this mind. He's not going to leave it there. He's going to go into this more. He's going to go into this a bit more. So the entering the Bodhisattva way. Okay, so the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, Bodhicharapatara. So it's got 2 verses which talk about this. It would be good to look, wouldn't it? Actually, I didn't think of looking, and I don't have it with me anyway. But I mean, of course, I could have got a copy. Just didn't think of it. So anyway, chapter 1, verse 9, and chapter 3, verse 26, according to the translator. So in there, Shantideva says that as soon as this mind has been produced, as soon as you have produced this mind, in other words, in yourself, inside yourself, then you become a child of the victors, which is another way of saying bodhisattva. You become a bodhisattva. Likewise, the life of Maitreya. That's interesting. Quite often with the holy beings, they don't just say biography or autobiography. They actually use the term liberation. And I suppose the reason is that such an account is an account of how that person led their life in such a way that they moved closer and closer to liberation, and maybe even achieve liberation in that life. I'm just guessing. Anyway, it's called the Maitreya Vimoksha. Vimoksha. You know, you've heard of Pratimoksha? They talk about the Pratimoksha vows, which is the lay vows and the monastic vows, you know, monks and nuns vows. So that's called Pratimoksha, right? So that must be, you know, same thing. Maitreya Vimoksha. Nampatapa. Tapa. Sosotapa. And Maitreya, of course, that's obvious, isn't it? The liberation of Maitreya. So that says, so this is quite a famous one. Child of the lineage. I don't know who's talking to, but one of his disciples, child of the lineage, probably different way of addressing a Bodhisattva, child of the lineage. It is like this. That could just as easily say child of the family, because sometimes they say, Sanghi Riksuke, I've been born into the family of the Buddha. You know, when we take the Bodhisattva vow, the family of the Buddha, child of the family. It is like this. For example, even a broken precious diamond outshines all gold jewelry, however refined. Oh, I've just realized. Hey, I was thinking this seemed a little bit familiar. We did this last week. Did anybody notice? Nobody noticed. I bet somebody noticed. I was just thinking to myself, I remember talking about this recently. It can't have been you guys, because, you know, we're carrying on where we left off last time. Okay, well, anyway, so we've looked at that. Let's skip to the bottom of the page. You see, Michael was asking where we were supposed to be starting. I remember telling you, I told you the last line of this page, right? But I don't know why I scrolled up. How did I end up at the top of the page? Okay. So anyway, with respect to this, okay, so this has been talking about even if you're not practicing the six perfections, still, you know, the fact that you have bodhicitta means you're a bodhisattva. Basically, it's saying that, isn't it? So then, so bottom of the page, last line. So this is with respect to this, the Mahavasareya Sutra. I don't know where that name comes from, because it's Dombogopa. And Dombogopa is, well, anyway, it's the Gandhavyuha Sutra, or it seems to have different names, Gandhavyuha. That's the Vyuha part is definitely a ray. So flower array or array of stalks. Dongbo is a stalk. Anyway, so that's what it's called, the Gandhavyuha Sutra. It sounds very nice and uncomplicated in the Sanskrit, I think. So the Gandhavyuha Sutra. So apparently, according to some, I don't know if it's this translator's notes or somewhere else. No, it was one dictionary I was looking at. So this is part of the Flower Ornament Sutra, which you might have heard of. You might have heard of both of them. The Avatam. So apparently that's the Avatamsaka Sutra. I'm not. There's something to investigate a bit, but it looks like part of. So you've got the Avatamsaka Sutra, which is very popular with the Chinese, very popular, and so part of that is called the Gandhavyuha Sutra. Okay, so in that he says, the Buddha says, child of the lineage, Bodhicitta is like the seed of all the Dharma of the Buddha. So it says ch in the Tibetan, and that that word. That is a word that we often translate. It's a Sanskrit word, obviously, which is often translated as the. We leave it in the Tibetan anyway, because we're used to saying Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the Buddha's Dharma, which sounds a bit like the Buddha's teachings, right? But it doesn't have to mean that. Actually, the word Dharma can also mean like quality. So it's like the seed of all the qualities of an enlightened being. If you have bodhicitta, then gradually, so that's the seed, which will gradually grow into all of the qualities of an enlightened being. So this will be explained. So anyway, so he's saying, I have to explain this because it is necessary to gain certainty about it. We have to get this very clear. And so he's giving the analogy of the seed that grows into the plant, and then which would be the main cause. Sometimes they call it substantial cause, and then all of the other ingredients that are necessary to help that seed grow into a plant. If you don't have the moisture and the warmth and nutrition in the soil, manure and stuff like that, it'll just stay as a seed, won't it? With all of that, then that activates it and it'll grow. It feeds off all of that. So, since water, manure, heat, soil, and so forth act as causes for a rice sprout when combined with a rice grain, and as causes for sprouts of wheat, pulses, and so forth when combined with their respective seeds, they are common causes. So water, manure, heat, and soil are the common causes or general causes. Since a barley seed is not suitable as a cause of a rice sprout, and so forth, even if the conditions are gathered together. So you can have the perfect conditions for the growth of the barley seed, but it will never grow into a rice plant, what it's saying. So because of that, it's the uncommon cause, the unique cause of a barley sprout. The barley seed is the unique cause of a barley sprout, while the water, manure, and so forth that cooperate with it are the common causes of the barley sprout. So they are the seed, the water, manure, heat, soil, and so on. Those are the general causes to grow any kind of plant, aren't they? Probably need those for any kind of plant. Similarly, among the causes for a Buddha sprout, so in other words, Buddhahood, which is like the sprout, then the mind of unsurpassed enlightenment, in other words, Bodhicitta, is just like the seed, and it's the uncommon cause, the unique cause, whereas the wisdom realizing emptiness is like the water and the manure and so forth. It's the common cause, actually, of the three types of enlightenment. So he's bringing us around to this idea, which will keep coming across, three types of enlightenment. You might be used to thinking enlightenment means Buddhahood, but actually there's the Hira enlightenment, Pratika Buddha enlightenment, and the full enlightenment, of Buddhahood. So it's the common cause, the general cause of the three types of enlightenment. So when the Hira takes the realization of emptiness and combines it with his or her aspiration to achieve the Hira enlightenment, then that kind of aspiration would be one of the ingredients that acts on together with the aspiration for liberation. The Hira liberation would be the main cause for them achieving liberation, and the emptiness would help them achieve that. Then the other kind of Hinayana practitioner, the Pratika Buddha, so their determination to achieve their enlightenment, the Pratika Buddha enlightenment, or the Pratika Buddha Arhat, that would be the main cause. Then combined with the wisdom realizing emptiness, that would be like the general cause, and likewise with the Mahayana. Okay so far, good. And that's why it says in the sublime continuum, the Uttara Tantra, Maitreya's Uttara Tantra, conviction in the supreme vehicle is the seed. Wisdom is the mother that gives birth to the qualities of enlightenment. So they say that and there's going to be some explanation of that, which is a bit kind of strange in a way. But anyway, cultural thing, I think. So yeah, so wisdom is the mother. I mean, that's quite nice anyway. So the perfection of wisdom, the Prajnaparamita, is called the Mother Sutra, because it contains the explanation of of emptiness, which is, so that wisdom realizing emptiness is the mother. Now, why is it called the mother? Why isn't it called the father? The mother is, okay, so in this world, the one who gets really the hard work is the mother. That's why it's kind of nice, I suppose, in a way that, a couple will say, we're pregnant, right? So it's kind of like, sort of sharing in a way. But I mean, actually, who's pregnant? Pregnant is the woman, right? She's the one whose body gets ruined by carrying that huge thing inside her. So anyway, but still, so why is the perfection of wisdom called the mother? It's not just a nice idea, but because the wisdom realizing emptiness, if it's combined with bodhicitta, then it'll lead to enlightenment. But if it's not combined with bodhicitta, it'll lead to something else, like, the hira enlightenment or the Pratyeka Buddha enlightenment, arhat. So then, so he explains why anyway. So this means that conviction, I don't know why, we've been talking about bodhicitta, but now this is conviction. So I don't know, I mean, conviction. Anyway, 159, let's see. Oh. DJ Gulamaliga, Techo la Merba, la Me. So actually, Merba it can be conviction. It's also sometimes more of a sense of faith. I mean, generally speaking, if you have faith in something, it carries along with it the idea of conviction, doesn't it? You have faith in something, anyway, whatever. So I think when it says conviction, what it's talking about is the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the supreme, in the supreme vehicle is the seed. Wisdom is the mother. Then he explains. So this means that conviction in the supreme vehicle is like the father's seed. And the wisdom realizing selflessness is like the mother, for instance. So now this is completely a cultural thing. I don't know if this works for us, but still you can understand the idea. And we can still understand other people's culture, can't we? So for instance, since a Tibetan father cannot have a child who is Indian, if the father is Tibetan, all the children are going to be Tibetan. No matter who he has the child with, it's going to be Tibetan. Cannot have a child who is Indian, Chinese, or Mongolian. The father is the cause that determines the lineage. Anyway, lineage, I don't know, what you call it. Anyway, you get the idea. It's going to be, because the father is Tibetan, then the child is going to be Tibetan. On the other hand, a Tibetan mother is like the common cause, since she can give birth to all kinds of children. And actually, there is a plus side to that, because, if that were to hold, let's say internationally, then when the Tibetan father wants his kids to have a foreign passport, he can't, because they're all Tibetan, so they can only have Tibetan passports. But the mother, she can have children with an American passport holders, and then they're going to be American, so they can get American passports. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that is ever an important thing, but one thing is for sure is that the mother of Asanga and Vasubandhu. So I think what happened is that she had Asanga with a father that was from sort of the royal caste, the king's caste or something like that. And that's why actually, anyway, so he belonged to that caste because of the father being from that caste. Whatever she was, I can't remember, I'm not sure. But that didn't count. So he belonged to that caste. And then Vasubandhu had a different father who was from a lower caste. So he belonged to that caste. So yeah. Yeah, you can imagine a society in which that mattered, couldn't you? So she can have children, as many children as she likes with somebody from the royal caste. All the kids are going to belong to the royal caste. Anyway, so you get the point is straightforward, isn't it? The point is pretty simple. Then so in his praise the perfection of wisdom, yeah. Nagarjuna also says that Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas equally rely on it. So that must mean the realization of emptiness. So it says that Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Shravakas definitely rely on you, the singular path to liberation. And it is true, or it's definitely true, definitely right to say there is no other. So this is a praise to the perfection of wisdom, because saying, the realization of emptiness, it can lead you to any of those three types of enlightenment. So it's that's what's amazing about it. But anyway, the point is that it's just having that doesn't guarantee you're going to achieve enlightenment, but just having bodhicitta does. It does guarantee you'll be on the Mahayana path, and when you combine it with emptiness, then you achieve enlightenment. Since it is the mother of the sons of both the Mahayana and the Hinayana, so the practitioners of the Mahayana and the Hinayana are called the sons of that mother, the children of that mother. She's the perfection of wisdom is the mother, and they are all her children. It is not the wisdom realizing emptiness that differentiates the Mahayana and the Hinayana, rather bodhicitta and the vast conduct that they engage in on the basis that bodhisattvas are engaging on the basis of bodhicitta that differentiate them. That's the difference. And then in the precious garland, they're also taught to be differentiated not by view but by conduct. View mean, in other words, by the realization of emptiness, not conduct in terms of like the accompanying practices. Anyway, so yeah, conduct. Usually in the context of the Mahayana, conduct means the six perfections, right? Practice of the six perfections. So here you have this verse from the Prashikalam. Then the Shravaka vehicle does not explain the Bodhisattva's aspiration, conduct, or complete dedication. So how could they become Bodhisattvas? This must be talking about the unique Hinayana teachings, because there's a difference. So you've got the Hinayana teachings. Some of them are uniquely Hinayana. Some of them are also Mahayana, but not uniquely Mahayana. So the point being that there were some teachings that the Buddha gave to audiences that it contained both Hinayana practitioners and Mahayana, because these were teachings that both of them needed. So teaching on emptiness would be okay. They all need that. Otherwise, no way to achieve their goal. But the other uniquely, in those special Shravaka teachings where the Buddha was teaching things that they needed, but which the, I guess, for their own path, the Bodhisattvas didn't need. There, the Buddha didn't talk about the Bodhisattva's way, how to generate bodhicitta. I mean, because they weren't interested, actually. They wouldn't have been interested. So, of course, if they don't hear about it, then of course they're not going to generate that kind of quality. So let's just read to the end of this section and then pause a few minutes. Therefore, if even the wisdom realizing emptiness is not a path unique to the Mahayana, what need is there to mention other paths? So what is unique to the Mahayana? I think we would all say by now, well, for sure, bodhicitta. It must be, because otherwise, if it wasn't unique, and if the Hinayana, if the hearers and such realizers had it, then they'd be bodhisattvas and they wouldn't be on their path, they'd be on the Mahayana path. So, bodhicitta is unique. Realization of emptiness is not, because we know all three all three paths you need. What about other things? It's worth thinking about. If it's not unique, then no matter how much you meditate on it and practice it, without the bodhicitta, it's never going to lead you to enlightenment. So later on, when we're looking at how to meditate on bodhicitta and start looking at great compassion, then we need to ask ourselves whether that is uniquely Mahayana or not. So it's a bit strange, really, because, as you'll see, I mean, we're just about to look at it. There's 7-part cause and effect instructions. So, you've got the base of equanimity, recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, then thinking of the kindness of all sentient beings because of, being one's mother, then repaying the kindness, then the heartwarming love, then great compassion, the special attitude, exceptional resolve, is translated different ways. Bodhicitta is the 7th one, right? So bodhicitta, the 7th one, that's uniquely Buddhist, right? And uniquely Mahayana. But what about the other one? Because if you've only recognized all sentient beings as your mother, doesn't mean say you've got bodhicitta, so you haven't entered the Mahayana. So does it mean that it's not uniquely a Mahayana practice? I'm not sure that, in the Theravada tradition, if we take that as an indication of, these days, what people are doing, what people do in the Hinayana path, I don't know if they do that meditation, all sentient beings of one's mother. If they did, what harm would it do? Wouldn't do any harm, would it, for sure, anyway, obviously, but what I mean is, it wouldn't mean that they suddenly became Mahayanists, would it? Anyway, it's interesting to think about. Think about those things, and then you understand them better, and then it's your whole path. It helps your whole path to become clearer. Okay, so what need is there to mention other paths? For that reason, it is necessary to train in bodhicitta, having made instructions on it one's main concern, the main thing in your main practice is generating bodhicitta, like His Holiness said about Rinpoche, like it was his heart practice, main practice, bodhicitta. Okay, so let's think about that a bit. So we have been looking at, since the beginning of the class, why it is that bodhicitta is unique. So we can spend a few moments thinking to ourselves, try to remember, just try to get some idea in your own mind without having to look at a book. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but the point is we need some things up here so that when we just like going for a walk or stuck in traffic or whatever, you've got something you can think about without having to have a book there, without which you can't think, kind of thing. So bodhicitta, what it means, in other words, is if you want to achieve enlightenment, you need bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, you'll never achieve enlightenment. Whatever other quality you may have, without bodhicitta, you'll never achieve enlightenment. If you have no other quality and just bodhicitta, you're on the path to enlightenment. Hmm. So shall we carry on? The next thing is how to actually generate that mind. And for this, you've got the stage of training in bodhicitta. So how to meditate on bodhicitta, how to generate bodhicitta. You normally talk about generating bodhicitta, meditating on it in the sense of trying to produce that quality in one's mind. Then the measure of it having arisen, which normally would mean, well, when you've been doing this kind of meditation, how do you know you've actually got bodhicitta? So that's what it's saying, the measure of it having arisen. In fact, in the version of the three principal paths that you can get on the FPMT site, which was worked on by Kyabje Zubramshe a lot, he includes a section which explicitly talks about how you will know if you've got bodhicitta or not, and he calls it the definition of having generated bodhicitta. Definition. Okay, so and then the way to adopt it by means of a ritual, so sort of bodhicitta ceremony, how to do that. So the stage of training bodhicitta. So this is two ways. There are two ways to do this. The sevenfold cause and effect instruction, transmitted from Atisha. Yeah, it's Atisha. You say yes, Sangha. You didn't. Yeah, George Embo is Atisha, the great George. Well, anyway, that comes to us through, through Atisha. That's a bit strange because even though the other way, as it says, training based on text by the Bodhisattva Shantideva, so, I mean, that is where the equalizing, exchanging self and others comes from, There's maybe other sources. In fact, we should be able to trace all of this back to the Buddha's own teachings. But so transmitted via Atisha. Via Atisha is okay. Yeah, of course, it didn't start with Atisha, just like the other way, it didn't start with Shantideva. But they came to us through Atisha and through Shantideva. Let's put it that way. I made a note. Oh no, that's different. Okay, yeah. Anyway, this you find lots of explanations of how to meditate on this, but now so we're moving on now to the 15th chapter. Okay, so the translator divided the book up into chapters, and so now on the 15th one, it's called the Sevenfold Instruction for Training Bodhicitta. It comes from Tisha, and he starts off with the sevenfold cause and effect instruction is this. So, well, what he means is, why do we have these seven? So he starts off with, well, the thing is, a complete Buddha, so a fully enlightened being, is born from bodhicitta, which is actually quite kind of like mind-blowing. So the Buddha comes from bodhicitta. Then that mind of bodhicitta comes from the extraordinary attitude. The extraordinary attitude, of course, is going to talk more about it later on, but the extraordinary attitude it means taking responsibility for all sentient beings. Yeah, like thinking, not just how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness, the perfect happens of enlightenment as well as its causes, and how wonderful it would be if they could all be completely free from suffering and its causes, like forever. Not just how wonderful it would be, but to cut a long story short, I myself alone am going to do this. I'm going to free them, and I'm going to bring them to that, full enlightenment. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to leave it said to anybody else. I have to do it, and I'm not going to even. Anybody who wants to help me can help me, but I'm not waiting for other people. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to leave it to somebody else. I'm going to do it. That's the extraordinary attitude. So that attitude comes from compassion. Then, and that's talking about great compassion. Then compassion comes from love. And this is, anyway, I could just mention, the thing is later on in the text, Lama Tsongkhapa says very clearly that loving kindness, which I usually call the, Champa, loving kindness and compassion, there's no fixed order. The way my teacher Gente Chok used to explain it was, having developed this heartwarming love, if that practitioner first of all thinks about the way in which sentient beings, although they want happiness, they're not happy, they don't have real happiness, and then wants them to be happy, then that means that first of all they would generate loving kindness. If instead, first of all, they would think about the sentient beings suffering and develop determination to help them, to liberate them from suffering, then first of all, the compassion, the compassion would come first, and the loving kindness would come second. So there's no fixed order; it varies. Okay, but here, if we take that love to be, the loving kindness, as in loving kindness and compassion, loving kindness that wants others to be happy, compassion wants others to be free of, the sentiment means to be free of suffering, then he seems to be saying that there's a fixed order, because this is cause and effect, right? It says cause and effect instruction, sevenfold cause and effect instruction. It means there's a fixed order. You get cause followed by result. You never get result, then cause. So you get this cause leads to that result. Then that result acts as a cause for the next thing, which will be its result, going on like that. So that seems to be saying that love is the cause of compassion. There's a fixed order. So he can't be talking about loving kindness. It's talking about the heartwarming love. Okay, and if that doesn't make sense to you right now, then hopefully by the time we get to the end of this chapter, it'll make more sense. So that love, which I think is the heartwarming love, comes from the wish to repay the kindness. The wish to repay the kindness from remembering the kindness, and remembering the kindness from seeing beings as one's mother. Okay, so he's explaining this is why we need all those steps. And again, that even still may not completely make sense. But if you start thinking about how with bodhicitta, you've made up your mind you're going to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And that's the key, really. For the sake of all sentient beings, for the sake of all the mother sentient beings. And so that burning desire to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, to put it in one way, it implies that you feel close to the sentient beings. So sentient tamshikidundu, for the sake of all sentient beings. You feel close to the sentient beings. Why would you strive for enlightenment, which is pretty hard work, for the sake of a bunch of people you don't care about? You wouldn't bother, would you? You wouldn't do it. Okay, so you need some, before the bodhicitta, you need some meditation. Well, let's put it this way. You need to have taken responsibility. So with the special attitude, it's like, I myself alone am going to do that. And at the moment, I can't. But if I become enlightened, I will be able to. Therefore, I have to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, the seventh one. So that's coming from the sixth one, where you've decided, I myself alone. And that's really where what I was just saying makes sense. I myself alone am going to do it for a bunch of people I don't care about. No. And also, don't care about. And if you don't really have any clear sense of them suffering, why would you want to free them from their suffering? So you need the compassion, because the compassion is aware of their suffering. And if you don't have the loving kindness, it means that you're not going to be aware of the fact that though they want happiness, they're not happy. They don't have real happiness. So for the sake of all sentient beings, really, that's a sort of cover term for loving kindness and compassion. You need loving kindness and compassion, and particularly, when they've really reached their fullest form, or fullest, when they're fully developed, is when they have that element of taking responsibility. I myself alone, right? So you need the loving kindness and compassion. But the loving kindness and compassion, at the moment, you feel concern for others that you feel close to. You don't feel that kind of concern for everybody. We don't at the moment. I mean, in a way we do, but if you think about it, it's almost like just intellectual. I mean, I know that because I think, when somebody who's really close to you, let's say you've got a child, your child's ill, your child is really depressed and is talking about killing themselves, then it's like your whole body and mind are shaking, right? You can, if it's ever happened, even if it's never happened, that it would be unbearable, right? And we care about all sentient beings because we are, we're involved in the Mahayana, we like these ideas. So you think, really, all sentient beings, yes, definitely. But when you hear about other people's suffering that aren't maybe like your children, or maybe your partner, there could be some other people, you think, oh, that's terrible. That's so terrible. That's so awful. But to actually feel that kind of, you don't have that same feeling, right? Anyway, that's what I'm trying to say. So the point is that the loving kindness and the great compassion, they need as a basis feeling close. And feeling close comes to all sentient beings, comes from recognizing them all as one's mother, and then thinking about their kindness and then repaying the kindness on the basis of that. The kindness, the heart-warming love comes where all sentient beings, they all look, you could call it pleasing. They just look so pleasing to you. And in fact, just recently, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche was using this word adorable. And I think it's a bit like that. All sentient beings appear adorable to you. I know we have this expression in English, it's probably similar, the apple of my eye. We talk about the apple, he's the apple of my eye, she's the apple of my eye. I mean, anyway, the thing is that my mum told me one day that when I was a little kid, the neighbors of my cousin, the woman, told my mum, oh, he's the apple of my eye. So you know what that means. We know what that means. Like, we know what that means, right? You see somebody and it just makes you just feel so happy to see them. Just seeing them just brings this kind of like happy feeling in the mind. And then that's what it's talking about, the heartwarming love. So that comes from, first of all sentient beings are your mother. Thinking about the kindness and repaying the kindness and that heartwarming love. So then on that basis, once you have that, then when you feel so close to all sentient beings, if you think about how they're not happy, it's like, I've got to do something. when you think about their suffering, I've got to do something. I'm not going to just, oh really, I mean, if it was your kids, it wouldn't be like that, right? They call you up, they're in a mess. Oh really? Okay, see you later kind of thing. It wouldn't be like that. You'd have to do something, right? So it's like that. Same principle. Okay. So that's what that's talking about. So yeah, the compassion from the heartwarming love, and then that comes from wanting to repay the kindness, the wish to repay the kindness, and then seeing all the sentient beings as one's mother. And we'll see. I'm sure. I'm afraid I can't remember, and I haven't read ahead. But it will start off. You would have to start off with equanimity. Equanimity, meditation on equanimity. Yeah, equanimity, that's on page 200. Now I've lost my page. Okay, so yeah, back to page 195. So that's, the sort of the way of thinking that brings out these seven steps. Now, okay, so he starts talking about, so yeah, it says at the end of that paragraph. So there are 2 points to think about here. One is trying to get it really clear in your mind that these are the stages. These are the stages to work through. These are the steps to go through. And then the actual gradual training, which means, the actual meditation one by one on these seven. So first of all, generating certainty concerning the stage, and it's quite interesting really, because the way this all comes down to looking at compassion. So the way compassion is the root of the Mahayana, right? Not the door of entrance into the Mahayana, the root of the Mahayana. So the source of the Mahayana, which is maybe another way of saying it's the source of Bodhicitta. It's the source of Mahayana. But I think when you say it's the source of the Mahayana, it's sort of emphasizing the fact that like the whole progress along the path, and you hear about our own Buddha, Guru Shakyamuni, after he generated Bodhicitta, then for 3 countless great eons, he was practicing the path. So his great compassion that he generated as a preliminary to developing Bodhicitta was the source of all of that practice for 3 countless great eons. And then, of course, the enlightenment that he achieved as a result of that, the culmination of that. Right. So we've still got a bit of time left. Then, okay, so the way it's the root of the Mahayana, and then the way the other cause and effects become cause and effects of that compassion. So people quite often call this way of meditation, the 7-part cause and effect instruction. They often call it the 6 causes and 1 effect. But actually, in one way of looking at things, it could be the 1 cause and the 6 effects. Because it's the way cause and effect work together. But here in particular, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying you've got so compassion is the 5th one. So you've got the 4 causes. The first 4 are the causes for great compassion. And then compassion is the cause for the last 2, right? The last 2. Special attitude and bodhicitta. So, and for that, the way compassion is the root of the Mahayana, the first one, the way that compassion is important at the beginning, at the middle, and the end. And that actually, if you might have come across this idea from Chandakirti in his Majjhimavatara, the engaging in the middle way. Very important text for understanding emptiness. So Yeah, he talks about how compassion is important at the beginning, middle, and end. At the beginning, meaning getting you started on the path. In the middle, meaning keeps you going on the path. And at the end, which means once you've achieved enlightenment as having practiced that path, how it is that compassion makes sure that you don't just sort of like sit back and enjoy it, but you're always non-stop, like day and night, always just doing whatever is right, whatever's going to help sentient beings. So, well, let's at least, let's see, yeah, not too bad. I think we can read through this. We might want to go through it a bit more, but let's look at this first one at least. The importance of compassion at the beginning. Let's just read through it first. If your mind is moved by great compassion, you will certainly resolve, which means like make a promise to yourself, to at least to yourself, to free sentient beings from cyclic existence. However, if your compassion is inferior, if you've only got a weak sense of compassion, that won't happen. Such deeds will not come about, so that just won't happen. Therefore, whether you take responsibility for liberating all beings without exception depends upon that compassion. And if you do not take that responsibility, you do not enter the Mahayana. That is why compassion is important at the beginning. So then this is, there's this quote from the Akshayamati Sutra, Akshayamati Nidesha Sutra. So, Venerable Shariputra. Okay, so the Buddha is talking to Shariputra, I guess. Sharitadiputra, the son of Shari. The great compassion of the Bodhisattva is inexhaustible. Why is that? It's inexhaustible. Why is that? It is because it is a preliminary. Venerable Sharitadiputra, it is like this, by way of analogy, just as the inward and outward breath of the, outward flow of the breath is a preliminary for our human life force faculty, likewise, the great compassion of the Bodhisattva is a preliminary for perfectly accomplishing the Mahayana. So preliminary, I mean, you know, it does actually say ngundro, something which precedes. I think precedes in the sense, with that analogy, because the inward and outward flow of the breath, what's it saying? If you stop breathing, you're going to die. It's as simple as that, right? Stop breathing, you're going to die. If you want to stay alive, you better carry on breathing. And so just like that, when it says, likewise, the great compassion of the Bodhisattvas is a preliminary for perfectly accomplishing the Mahayana, it's like your path will die without compassion. I think it's like that. Venerable Sharitadiputra, the great compassion of the Bodhisattva is inexhaustible. Inexhaustible. Yeah, so that's just the Lodamisabik Tambale Tsumba Sharitadipu. Shenya Janjosamba Mangi Yinje Chembo Misedo is endless. Yeah, inexhaustible or endless. I mean, you know, just thinking about what that could mean. I mean, it can't end, right? And it doesn't end, because there are people that actually do get started on the Mahayana path and do follow the Mahayana path to its completion and do achieve enlightenment. And from that moment on, you know, for as long as space endures, according to the prayer, the compassion keeps going. It never comes to an end. So it's inexhaustible in that way. I mean, you know, if we generate a bit of compassion and then get distracted, then it's not going to be endless, is it? It's not going to be endless, but you know, if you really work on it so that it gets you into the Mahayana path, then it will be, you know, it will be what keeps your path alive, and it will keep your path alive. Yeah. So that's what that says. The Gaya Shirsha Hill Sutra. Yeah, so it says Gaya Guri. I never thought about that, but the Ri in Gaya Guri is a mountain, anyway, or hill, I suppose. Gaya Shirsha Hill Sutra. Ooh, thunder. So what does he say anyway? Never mind all that. Getting distracted by the title. Manjushri. What initiates the conduct of bodhisattvas? What is its object? So Manjushri replied, divine child, that must have been a god that was asking him, what initiates the conduct of bodhisattvas is great compassion. Its object is sentient being. So what gets a person started with the bodhisattva way of life? It is kind of literally correct to say conduct vichurpa, conduct behavior. But I always like so much this original translation of the Bodhisattva by Steve Batchelor, which he calls the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It doesn't always fit, but yeah, that's what it's about. Shantideva's text is about the Bodhisattva's way of life. Okay, so what is it that gets you started with that kind of way of life? What is its object? So you can see from the answer that what is it? Who is it that you meditate on? With that thing, whatever it is that gets you started. And Manju says, so, divine child, what gets you started with the Bodhisattva's way of life? What gets things really moving? I mean, you'd think it should be bodhicitta, right? But anyway, it's great compassion. And it's obviously sentient beings. That great compassion is what will make you get into the bodhisattva way of life. Okay, so I think we can stop there. I don't know if there's any question. Maybe I should have asked before. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I think. But anyway, if there's a question, go ahead. Maybe one question. Okay, we can do some dedication then. It must be just too clear. The 11th of July, my mum was 92 today. And I forgot. All right. Janju Sencho Rimbo Chemai Ke Panam Kingyu Yaba Nyamba Nyamba Ekane Gandu Pavarisho. So this is like an expanded version of that prayer. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may Bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world. Sometimes Rinpoche would say, especially in the hearts of the world leaders, whether it's secular or religious or whatever. including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FBMT organization, especially everybody connected with the Land of Medicine Buddha, the students, the staff, volunteers, everybody. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, and all those for whom I have promised to pray, including everybody in our LMB prayer book and all the FBMT prayer books, and all those whose names have been given to me. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the Bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantha Butler as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all of gone beyond victorious ones at the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. Due to past, present, future merits collected by me, numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, may I abide in samsara to help them, even though I achieve highest enlightenment. By merely seeing, hearing, thinking about, or remembering me, as well as by touching me or talking to me, may all suffering instantly be pacified, and may there be happiness forever. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Prachika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the 3 jewels and the great waves of Bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, that's it. Thank you. And yeah, we got another one next week, I think. Right? Yeah, another class next week. Okay, so see you next week in England. I'll be back in England.
Thank you, Venerable.